And it's great to know, my objective with this class is it's great to know yourself, but it's also really wonderful to start to learn how to identify your clients, and then it's up to you to kind of mirror and match with them so that you will be able to have a lot more success with different behavioral styles. When I started really mastering this technique, my business did a huge, what I call hockey stick swing up. And my clients walked away from the deal going, wow, Kathy really got me, that's awesome, it's wonderful, and they refer me tenfold more. So my business really started to swing up. I mastered it by just coming back and studying and practicing, and to be honest with you, I practiced on my family before I started practicing on my clients, because I think that it's best for us to try to identify the ones that are closest to us. Again, great to know yourself, awesome to know everyone else, and then you can come to them, because there's times in our life, I think we can all agree, that there's pivotal moments when you need to persuade someone to your side. And you can do that if you know how that person is wired and wants to receive the information. And so we'll talk about that in more great detail as we go through the class. But the class was written with the preface and the idea of wanting to take the disc to the next level. So welcome to class. I'm completely obsessed with education. I don't think that we should ever stop learning. I think we should always be in learning mindset. But I want to create an exclusive experience for everyone. There are no dumb questions. If you have a question, 9 times out of 10, someone to your right or someone to your left has the same question. You're just the brave one that raises your hand and asks. So please feel free. I love a good conversation. And for it to be a public conversation means that we're all going to learn and grow. So there's 4 basic styles to the disc. Since a lot of you are familiar, we'll go through this part pretty quickly. The D's are the dominant and the drivers. The I's are the influencing and the inspiring. The S's are steady and stable, and the C's are compliant and correct. So how many people know what they are on the disc? Great. If you have not taken the disc, I do have a free link, so let me know after class and I'll give you that. And then you can take the test yourself. The key to it is to take it quickly and what's your first answer. Don't sit, contemplate it, think about it. If it takes you longer than 10, 12, 15 minutes to take it, it's taking too long. You're thinking about it too much, okay? It's your first instinct, it's your first reaction. That is your true self. So how many high D's do we have in the room?
High or highest?
Highest. So highest, okay. How many highest I's? Awesome, that's me. How many highest S's? Perfect. And then do we have any high C's? Great.
I loved that stuff as a kid.
Okay. So let's talk about the general D characteristics. They're dominant, they're direct, they're demanding, decisive. They're determined problem solvers. They're doers, not talkers, defiant, risk takers, and self-starters. So at the end of the day, the doer, not talker, just say to yourself, walk and talk, speak in bullet points. If you have to follow them to their cars, they're getting to the car, that is the best use of their time because they're going towards their next destination and they don't want to be bogged down and have to stand still and talk to you, okay? If you get a client that is a high D, you will start to know these things and you'll recognize it. We'll talk again more in detail, but I'll teach you how to have a lot more success with Ds because they can be one of our most, well, demanding clients. And their directness can come across as being rude sometimes. And so us high I's, we have to work on not having our feelings get hurt, okay? Because they don't mean it that way, all right? So we'll talk a little bit more about it. And any questions about the high D's, does this ring true with you? Perfect. It's interesting because in every list, there will be, let's say, something that might be like, I'm not really that. Oh, sorry you guys. Can I? I'm gonna turn this off, but would you watch, and if Life Care Center calls me, would you let me know?
Yep.
Please. Okay, so D characteristics and defiant can sometimes be the one where they're like, oh, I'm not really that defiant. Start noticing. If you're high D and you think you're not defiant, just start noticing. Because, yeah, you are. Okay, so the general I characteristics. So I'm a 99 out of 100 I. That has never changed. Never. Every time I take the test, I'm just an I. And what has adjusted and changed, and I will tell you this, if you have, how can I put this? If you've taken the test and you've had a life-changing experience, you've had something that has shifted in your world, give it a couple of months to settle down and then take the test again, because it could adjust. My best example is when I first came into real estate, I was a DI. Actually, no, that's wrong. ID. My D was an 86 and my I 99. So, and I'm talking 1 to 100 for each behavioral style. So with my D being high, I was a good agent because I was just like on it, and I was very people oriented, and so it's like I was just happy. Like I loved real estate, felt like I had finally found my niche in my life and my world and my career, and I was like, let's do this. When I went on to a team, the team leader was a DC. So a driver and very correct. I call it a push and pull you. It's like his own behavioral style kind of clashed with himself. Okay, we'll talk about that in just a second when we get to that part. But my behavioral style was an ID. So what happened? Our two Ds were just clashing. We were just like banging heads into each other, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Because here was the quandary for me. I really enjoyed being on the team. I really liked the opportunity that I was getting. But the Ds, it was like we were fighting almost every day. And that's where the defiance comes in, because I didn't really even understand that I was even that defiant. Because I don't like for people to tell me what to do. Just don't. I don't think I know everything. I just don't like you to tell me what to do. So at the end of the day, okay, so with the Ds being banging heads, here's what had to happen. I had to dial my D down. We are very intelligent human beings. We're in real estate. We have to be intelligent. So I dialed my D down when he was in the room, because this was his team. This was his world, and I was just allowed to play in it. Okay? I dialed mine down out of respect. Not because I was told to, not because I had to. I kind of did have to, because we had to learn how to live with each other, because we saw each other much more than each other's spouses. Okay, so we had to learn how to live and work together. So I dialed my D down when he was around. But as soon as he left the room, my D went right back up to where it was, because that allowed me to get my job done proficiently. Okay? So we can dial down and dial up any one of the behavioral styles as is necessary. And we'll talk about that when we get to the client part of this, because that is the secret sauce. That's the power that you have, is dialing up and dialing down. You gotta read the room and know when is it your time to raise your D or lower your D, okay? Any questions on the I? And by the way, my I was driving his behavioral styles both crazy, just crazy. But my benefit and the value I brought to the team was exactly what he needed. So he too had to learn how to live with me too, okay? One time he actually banged on the wall and he screams, he goes, "Cat, you're talking too loud." I'm your buyer's agent. It's my job to talk. My decibels, I work on bringing it down, but at the end of the day, if we're having a great conversation, it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. And he starts laughing, he's like, okay, fine. Okay. Now the general S characteristics. Supportive, stable, steady, sweet, status quo means we don't like change. Can be shy, can't say no, good listener, team player, possessive, understanding, and friendly. So what happened when I shifted and went over to the team, and I'm gonna kick off the shoes, nobody cares. What happened was that my D, in dialing that down because I had to coexist, my S just naturally came up, which kind of surprised me. And I had to kind of sit down and ask myself, because when I retested, I came out as an ISD. C will always be the lowest for me. I really work at my details. Details, do you want my house or not? You know, because it's like, I'm very impatient and I want to help my clients as best I can. Details always slow me down, so I hate them, but I know they're necessary. So the S came up when I get onto the team. But in reality, truly, that really is who I am. I am an IS. My D was kind of falsely up because my husband at the time traveled a lot and I had to be in charge of the family and then had to be in charge of my business. So I had to be in charge of a lot. So it was like, if you have to be in charge of a lot, the D is up above your midline, which is 50. But it was high, but it was kind of falsely high because of my environment. So when I was allowed to just relax and be myself, my S was truly who I am. Because I can't really tell y'all, I think the I overcompensates this because I can't think of many times in my life that I'm shy. I can think of times when I'm just like, ooh, this is a big room. Or I can be like, but then my I will always kick in and I'll just be like, oh, what the heck, let's go. 3, 2, 1. So it's really interesting. And then this one was very interesting because I thought, I'm not possessive. Oh, I am. I truly am. Like if you're in my pack and someone tries to hurt you, nah, Mama Bear's gonna be like banging out. Cause it's like, that's my possession. Cause you're my friend and no one can hurt my friends, okay? I'm a big tribal person. It's like, I form tribes. Wherever I go, it's like I form tribes. And it's like, okay, we're just all going to be together because together we're really strong. Separate, we can be taken out. Okay. Any question? Oh, sorry, I'm predictable. I'm very predictable. My children even tell me, be careful, Mom, you're planning my spontaneity. I used to be really spontaneous. I swear, I really did. I used to be really spontaneous. But this business has turned me into a planning freakazoid. Because it's like, nope, everything's got to go this way because when it goes this way, then I know everything's going to close and you're going to be happy and you're going to walk away with the house. And so it's like, So it's really interesting at how, again, this has kind of changed your behavioral style. And I shy away from the word personality with the disc. It's not a personality style. It's not that. It's a behavior, not a personality. Okay. So if you hear somebody say it's a personality test, no, it's a behavioral test. Because all of these are not a-holes. They're just not. They can be, but they don't have to be, okay? And I've met a lot of really nice D's. Okay, so the C characteristics. Cautious, calculating, competent, cognitive, contemplative, careful, can be perceived as cold, perfectionist, and accurate. The coldness, in my opinion, comes in because they're very, very cerebral. They're way in their heads. And they don't talk a lot, which the rest of the world perceives as them being cold and not caring. Spock's a great high C. Spock from Star Trek. He's very just no emotion. Doesn't mean they don't have it. So there's where we kind of have to remember that these do have feelings. They just don't show it because they're too busy calculating a math problem in their head. And it's really interesting. My issue with working with high C's because I was at the time, and I mean, I'm telling you, low C. Like when I started this industry, I was at 3 out of 100. Details just have never really been my thing, right? And I was never asked to be. However, my C goes way up because I started studying piano when I was 9. And I'm a very good piano player and I'm a very good sight reader. And you have to be about the details when you're that. So I know it's in there. It's just that it doesn't come out often except when I sit down and play piano. So at the end of the day, it's like, here's all of the C characteristics. The majority of the world are an S or C combination.
okay? They're your engineers. They're the people that are not us. They're not salespeople, okay? Salespeople are pretty much like not really high C's. Now, they can learn to be. So now my C is now at a proud 36. I don't know if it's going to get any higher, but hey, you know what? From 3 to a 36, pretty dang good. That's working at bringing that up. That shift happened when I left the team and took over at Keller Williams' office as the team leader. And I truly did not know what I was saying yes to. I just had it on my bucket list, the someday category of someday I want to be the team leader of this office. So my team leader, where I was on the team, his favorite question is when. And so every goal that you have on your list, as he's going through it with you, he'll say, when. Because to him, without the deadline, it's just a wish. If you have a goal, you need to have the deadline of when that is going to happen. So he would point to that because I left it on my list of the someday category of my goals. And he's like, when's this going to happen? And it dawned on me after a minute, because again, C is low, dawned on me after about the fourth or fifth time he asked me that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, let's clarify and define. And I looked at him and I said, hey, do you know that I don't want to be the team leader of just any office? I want to be the team leader of this office. And he was like, oh. I said, so do you see Lee retiring anytime near soon? No. Okay, great. Can we get off of this now? Because I don't either. So Lee Stern was the team leader and I was like, I didn't see it. No. A couple years later, she did raise her hand and say, hey, I want to go help Josh. And she left and retired and through a gigantic series of interviews, I'm the one they chose. And so that was great. And when I came over, not knowing what I had said yes to, kind of having an idea, great, because I'd seen Lee do it for 8 years. And at the end of the day, they handed me these gigantic spreadsheets. And I had to know my office numbers, just like you guys have to know your business, but I had to know my office number times 212 of you. Because I had 212 agents. And I was like, whoo! And then office numbers, and then the other offices, and then the state of Utah, and then the United States, and it was just crazy. So here I stand at a 3 of the details, and they were handing me a stack of spreadsheets that were like beyond legal size. I don't even know what size this is. This is what they handed me. But like, wow. Change in environment, because I really worked, and it took me a year to kind of get the hang of all of it, okay? Tested again, that's where I went from a 3 to a 36, so just so you know. Okay, so working with the buyers and sellers. When you're talking to a D buyer and seller, be prepared with the facts. Why? Again, walk and talk, speak in bullet points. Don't be showy and wordy as they flip to the last page anyway. They're the ones that flip to the last page of the book, read the ending, and then start reading the book. My uncle is a high D. He does this every single time he picks up a book. He'll read the last page and then he'll flip it to the front and then go. It is just because he can't stand not knowing how it ends first. So they do like facts and figures. Know your MLS stats and share them quickly. If you don't know, tell them you don't know, because 9 times out of 10, they do know the first couple of questions I'm going to ask you. They know the answers. They're just testing you. Because if you're not valid and worthy, then you're not worth working with, okay? If it looks like the numbers will work, they'll buy the house. I had a buyer one time that walked in, I would say maybe 10 feet. He looked right, he looked left, and he goes, write it up. Walked back out, got in the car, and I was like, because my high S was just freaking out, because I know everything has to be steady and stable. And I'm like, dude, the client wants to walk to the car. You know? So I'm like, walking to the car. I legitimately made up an excuse to go back with the agent. I didn't tell them that the client didn't see the house, because then they wouldn't really put value and weight in my offer, which was really good, so I didn't want to lose out. So I didn't tell them. I was like, I think I'm gonna look it. But I had to go back in to see it. So the whole point is, if you've got something that's like glitching you, you deal with it. Don't make your clients deal with it, okay? Don't look at them, because I've seen this, and it's a train wreck. I've seen some super high S agents that would have said to the client, hey, you know, you really do need to see the whole house. because we just don't know what the rest of the condition of the house is in. So he's giving them his problem. And so I'm just like, oh, okay. And you just go, and you write it up, and let them sign, and now you know you're protecting their earnest money because they've got certain dates that if something goes awry, you can cancel, get their earnest money back, and move on. They're still okay, but you have to react according to their behavioral style. Does that make sense? Has anybody had a story that they can kind of relate? Yeah.
Love to. We've got an investor that in my team, I have 4 people on my team. One of them is a brother and one of them is a sister, and then 2 are non-related. One of our biggest investors is a person that sold a tech company. And it's also the brother and sister's brother-in-law. He is the highest D you can possibly imagine, while my buddy is I, and he's just trying to kind of like get him in, ask him all the questions and go through all the things. And I'm like, no, what you need to do is give him all the facts, say we need $1.2 million, send the text.
Yeah.
Don't call him, don't email him, just be like, this is, your return, this is your thing. And he can't get that. And I'm like, no, he's got millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
He's got this much time.
Yeah.
He'd rather spend it with his wife, with his family. He'll write a check for just a quick question.
Yeah, because if the numbers will work, they'll do the deal. It's really that simple for him. So that's great. That's a perfect example. Okay. Oh, if you're going too slow, they'll get fidgety. Look for people's tells. Okay, clicking pens, swinging legs. It's like if you're just going too slow, woo, woo, click, 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 click. Then everybody.
Who else just took stock of what they were doing?
Who else just suddenly slowed down their legs and stopped?
I'm just curious how anybody else in the room was like, hold on, where am I at?
Come on, Kathy, speed it up.
Exactly. It's like we can get that 45 minutes. It's like I talk really fast.
And time.
And go. Yeah. It's really funny because start noticing people's tells because they will tell you how it's going. That's another thing. If you are going through your presentation, don't be the one that's got it on your iPad and you gotta like go through every single page. If they start like fidgeting, freaking out, like looking out the window, checking their watch, looking at their emails, their phone, whatever it is, you've lost them. In other words, go to the last page. This is the bottom line. You're interested? Great. Here's your contract. Sign it. All right, I'm gonna get out of your hair. See ya. Some listing appointments can take 10 minutes. Because you're like, here it is. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, you know what? Want to work together? I do. Okay, great. Boom. That's it. Done. Pack up your shit. Oh, sorry.
No, you're full of
And get out.
Do not self-filter.
Okay. Okay, now here's the fun part. When you're working with the iBuyers, who are my high eyes? Okay. Dude, we're like looking for people that we have something in common with and that we can have some fun with. Because if it ain't fun, I'm out. I'm just not doing it, right? I don't want to teach if I'm not going to have fun. I don't want to teach to a deadpan group of agents. It's just not good. But when it came to the buyers and sellers, oh, Lord help us if I found another iBuyer. Because, oh my gosh, first off, we're BFFs. And it's like, I still have clients, you guys. I got out of selling real estate 10 years ago. I have clients I still hang out with. Because it's like, no, dude, like, I have this one client, and you get so attached, because I have this one client that was like, so low, like, she could barely afford the basement of a house, let alone a house, right? But you fall in love with your clients. And I just wanted her, I had this mantra that was in my mind for myself every bit as much as my clients. But I shared it with them because I wanted to make it public, I wanted to put it out there, attracting in the universe. I said, you know what? I haven't ever failed a client, I'm certainly not gonna start with you. It may take us a minute, but hang in there, because we're gonna get this done. Okay, so now we're forming a team, we've got an alliance, right? And so we get out there, we start shopping for houses. I found this house, and I mean, we beelined it. And I opened up the door and I walked through before she got there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is her house. And when she got there, she said she will never forget this, and I think this is the coolest thing ever. She goes, I saw you standing in the doorway grinning like a Cheshire cat. And she goes, as soon as I walked up the front door, she goes, I have found your house. And she goes, I wanted to cry, just right then and there. But it was like those things, that's what high eyes do, and because we look for everything. But when talking to a buyer, first give them a hug and engage in small talk. Because, it's not that we're dumb, but we just want to feel that connection, okay? Be careful not to allow them to distract you with the latest story, because we got stories at the meeting. We have stories on top of stories. And I have to remind myself when talking to a D, like when I go into Nudia's office, I limit my stories. Because Nudia Rivera, owner of Novation Title, very high D. And I'm like, she has the best story. I got one story, and it's a short one. And she's so cute, because she'd be like, okay, I gotta get back. Let them know how much you appreciate doing business with them and tell them that the transaction will be fun. Seriously, dude, if it is not fun, I'm out. If you've got another high client, like, just laugh and have fun. And oh my gosh, you can have so much interaction and it just lightens the stress. Humor lightens stress, okay? Use lots of pictures. Again, I'm not dumb, but it tells the story faster. The D's and the I's move very quickly. The S's and C's will move at a slower pace. And if you're a combination like I am of the I and S, then you're going to move sometimes fast and then sometimes slower.
No, no.
Oh, you were just like, okay, got it.
He's pigeon.
That's okay. They like, everybody's gonna know. That they like every house they see or they appear to. So this is the thing, we don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings, okay? But you have to teach them how to be discerning and how to tell you with it being lighter so that they don't feel like they're hurting anybody's feelings.
Man, I've had clients that clearly didn't like the home, that still insisted on seeing every square foot, like every inch, like, oh no, we gotta see this, like, you hate this house.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
We can go.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is like, working with high eyes is like, they will go fast with you if you teach them how, but then make it fun, because even to this day, I would still be tempted, now I have to kind of try this out, because I haven't been in sales in a long time. I'd still be tempted to do my little booklets, because here's the fun part, especially for my high eyes. The fun part is like, they got their little booklet, they're gonna see these houses, and then if they got one that they don't like, they just like literally rip it out of the booklet, wad it up and throw it in the back seat. You'd be surprised how fast they'll go. Because that to them is like, I think this one. But they don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings, so you have to kind of be aware. So working with an S buyer and seller, you talk about how you can make the transaction go smoothly. Because they don't want to see the boat get rocked. I remember when I first started on the team and I watched the team leader do a negotiation in front of the clients. Now, the clients were two attorneys, so they appreciated that because they liked seeing the powerful agent that they had hired for them. If that was an S, let's say they were an engineer and a stay-at-home mom, they would have been under the table. They would have been like, do this when I'm not around because I don't want to see the boat get rocked. And to them, it's very, very uncomfortable because they don't like watching negotiations because they want everything to be smooth. Kumbaya. Everybody is like all copacetic. Talk about how you're there for them and you're their teammate. S's love teams. So this is a really important thing. They don't like to be pushed, so be careful if you're a D. And the interesting part about it is that sometimes I have mislabeled an S with a D when they get pushed because it's like, they will react kind of like a D. I've got a really good friend of mine that's a high S, and if you ask him to do something that he even views as a little bit gray, no, we're talking like rigid, like his whole body language changes and he's like, no, that is, nope. And then all of a sudden his high S comes across as a D. Know that they will bring along everyone. Mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousins, everyone. COVID has kind of slowed that down a little bit, However, it's definitely the group effort. They're the ones that are going to go, like this is when my S comes out, where it's like, okay, I think the last time I was here I told you guys I love wine. I love going to Napa. I love putting all of the trip together but I've got to have a couple of people look at the trip. And so I call my daughter, I did a trip in May. And I took some friends to Napa and I designed the trip, but I called my daughter and I was like, look at this and tell me if you think this is good. And she's like, yeah, but I would switch, got along with Hess. And I'm like, oh yeah, good call, because you get to Hess first. Okay, yeah, good call. So I want it to be a group decision, so I like for everybody to kind of look at my stuff for approval. Aspire's missing out on a lot of deals in any hot market because you can't push them faster than they're willing to go. A key for them is that if you can get them to do it once, they'll do it again quicker. In other words, if they write an offer and they've signed all of the documentation, that will be the slowest part of the deal, is that first time that they're going to, because you're going to have to go over, because their C will naturally rise when they're in S, because you're going to be going over contracts and things that they need to know. And if it's new to them, they're going to be a little slower. Just breathe and just go through the process. But the second time it comes up, they're like, oh yeah, okay. And then they'll sign faster, okay? So wait, before I go on. Any questions on this one? Because remember, the majority of people are S's and C's.
That's the bulk of my clients. I'm high D, but like the bulk of them are high S.
Yeah.
Like nearly all of them. But
you almost
somehow
have
those work.
to meditate before you go in, because you can't if you bring your D into an S conversation, it's going to scare the living crap out of them. And it's too much.
I've noticed for myself what works for me, knowing about myself as a high D and I, is I even right out the gate almost like prepare people for my personality. So they know, like, if I do come across full blunt to the point, not trying to be harsh, not trying to be mean, like if I come across that way, like, please let me know, so I help them understand kind of my style, because you're right, like a lot of them are the opposite. And same with like being pushy, because I know that about myself. I'll tell people, like, I'm never here to push you into my agenda or anything, but like, please give me the feedback, let's communicate if that does ever happen, if you feel that way, so that people maybe are a little aware of, a stronger personality like that. They're not like that.
Exactly. You reminding them that you're on the same team will help them, because my daughter is a super high D. Like, I probably want to guess she's a 99. Super, super high D. She scares the crap out of everyone in Utah. She's dual licensed in Utah and Texas, but she lives the majority of her time down in Texas. And she has a home in Dallas. And so how I coached her was, if she knew she was rolling into an appointment with a high S or God forbid a C, because we both fail with C's. But if she was coming into a high S appointment, I remind her, I say, breathe, slow down your speech. Again, they're not dumb, but they just like a little bit of a more steady environment. I said, but explain to them when there's times when your natural behavioral style will have to come through, because you are their teammate and you're the one that's leading this, and we're going to get the deal done. This is what has to be done. If there's ever a time, so make a deal with them. If there's ever a time that you feel like we're going too fast or you've got some questions, I said, like, physically raise your hand and say, hey, hang on a second, explain this. Because at no point will I ever not slow down for you to bring you up to speed. That makes them feel a lot more comfortable. But the team thing, that's really important to them. So if you're creating that team environment, they'll follow you anywhere because you're the leader.
And you might go over this, but how do you identify them? Like,
yes.
Someone you're going over
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Let's get through the C's and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so the C's, okay, oops. Every C that I've had for probably 6 or 7 years failed miserably, just because I didn't give them enough information. I didn't give them enough detail. And the detail, to me, I was like, every time I did it, I gave them tenfold more detail than I did the last time. And I thought, this time I've got it. But I'm a very optimistic person. And we would say, honey, pay somebody to take the high C's off you because you're never going to win. I'm like, no, this time I got it. That's for cheap. So I'm just like, yeah, woo, we can do it. And you're walking the C's. And then my last deal that I did, my last deal I closed, before I walked into the team leader role, I got a glimpse into a true high seas brain. And I was like, wow, that's a scary place. I've never been there. Because I swear to heaven, and I think we should always be open. If your gut and your instinct is saying something to you, pay attention. Even if you question it yourself and go, I don't know why I should do this, but my gut's telling me I should. So, perfect example, again, super low C, right? I got this one last deal and it was a doozy. So, this client was the vice president of Wells Fargo, super high up. I'm gonna say this in the kindest way I can. He was very short and he was going through a divorce and he had small man syndrome, like big time. So he wanted to be large and in charge. And he hated the fact that he wasn't in charge because he didn't know how to do real estate. He was great at banking, but he didn't know how to do real estate, so he had to depend and rely on me. It didn't matter if I was Joe Schmo. He would have hated it, okay? But he was very, just had spreadsheet after spreadsheet. We bought a townhome up in Jeremy Ranch for him. This was going to be his home, and his goal was to literally walk in with his suitcases, set them down, and he was done. He was ready. Because he was leaving everything to his wife and kids, and he was walking out with 3 suitcases, okay? Very stressful time in his life. He truly, really didn't want the divorce, but it was happening anyway. So there is that. So you have to file that in the back of your brain and in your heart. So you have to, without him even asking, empathize with him, even though he was a complete a-hole to me the entire time. So I was just like, let it bounce off, doesn't matter, roll off, water up the duck's back, who cares? I did my job. But there was something that said to me when I walked into this townhome, take a picture. So, and the townhome was 3 stories, and I literally took a picture from every angle of everything on every floor. And I did it all 3 floors, had no idea why I needed it. But something inside of me said, do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Swear to heaven, when we did our final walkthrough, there were 2 pieces of art that were missing. And he picked them up, and I'm talking, there was a lot of art, like a lot of stuff. And 2 things. And I was like, okay, hang on. So I'm like looking at my pictures now, all of a sudden this is useful. And he goes, that picture, and I'll be damned, he was right. I was like, yeah, photographic memory. And then another, so I had to call the listing agent and I'm like, I'm sorry, tell your clients bring back these 2 pieces, I'll send you pictures. And they're like, really? Damn. And I was like, okay, so there it was. And I was like, huh. So if your gut says do something, just do it. If you don't need it, throw it away later, but there it is. Okay, now, let's talk about the way to identify who your clients are. So if you say to them, describe your home to me, how they respond is going to be who they are behaviorally. If you ask a D, describe your home. So let's say that somebody says, oh, is it, I just live in an apartment. I don't care, that's fine, describe it to me. If they're a D, they're gonna go, it's a house, what do you want?
As you were asking that question, I'm literally the exact same. The house.
Yeah. The eyes are gonna tell you all about the neighborhood, all about the neighbors, all about the kids, all about the dogs and the cats and everything. They're gonna know tons about people, okay? And then they tell you how pretty it is and how nice it is and what a homey feeling it has. So it's all about relationships. The S's will tell you how long they've lived there, and they're not really sure they want to move because they don't like change. And so they'll be like, well, I've lived here for like 9 years, or I've lived here for 16 years. And if they've married another S, they will like sympathize with one another. Oh, I know. Isn't it so nice? It's just such a nice neighborhood. I don't think I'm going to leave either. S's marry one another, and then God help you trying to get them a house because it's like they're just moving like sloths, right? Then if they've married a D, they'll be like, oh, excuse me, we have 4 children and you're pregnant with the 5th and we have 3 bedrooms. Hello? You've got to go now. Okay, now you know who both of them are, right? And then the C's are gonna be like, it's 1,738 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. However, one of the bedrooms. It's like they're gonna verbally
That is a
vomit.
scary place to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
gonna verbally vomit details on you. That's your C. So that's how you can tell. And I learned this from one of the top producing agents. I don't know if you guys know Jimmy Rex. It's like, I learned this from Jimmy Rex and I was like, I swear to heaven, my life changed when he said that. I was like looking at him like, oh, brilliant. And it was like, I'm so glad I invited him in to teach at my team meeting because I was like, I learned something that changes my world. So there's that. Okay. Now, perfect closing gifts. For the D's, anything that's traditional, they enjoy old-fashioned and newest cutting-edge technology to help them accomplish their goal and be more efficient, okay? I's, they enjoy almost anything, but they're gonna give you a hug and look for the next present. The S's, gifts that you can do with others, like axe throwing, because guess what? You're part of the team, you're part of the family, and now they want you to come with. So if you give them a gift for axe throwing, then you're going to consider yourself part of it because they're going to now want you to be a part of their family forever. C's, they enjoy individual gifts or gifts that can help them accomplish tasks. Computer programs, calculators, anything along this line. It's like they like anything that's technology that's going to help them. Any questions on this? Okay, so now let's get into understanding the D's, because this is interesting. They have a hard time reacting to I's and S's. I's are all over the place and way too happy, and the S's move way too slow, okay? An I will bug a D, just because we're just like way too much. So the I's, as you come into a room, you know you've got some D's in there, you have to dial that stuff down. Because we don't want to alienate people, we want to mirror and match them, but we don't want to dial it up and compete with their D because that's not appropriate either. The D's need to be patient with the I's and S's. They do like giving direction to the C's because they know that they'll get it done right the first time.
Absolutely.
And then the D's like working with other D's because they're competitive. And so it's so funny because I consider myself like my career in real estate, I call it growing up. Because I got in as an infant when I was only like, I don't know, 42. And as an infant, I was just like, well, this is kind of cool. Like, I like this. This is fun. And then as I was growing up, I would watch the other D's. And most of the time, they had some pretty good relationships with one another, but they were always vying to be the number one. But it does raise the bar. D's need to slow down and take a deep breath and smell the roses, but good luck with that because 9 times out of 10, probably not gonna happen. They don't really care about your opinion, only the facts. So don't ever say to a D, I feel, because they don't really care how you feel. They just wanna know what's what and get on with it and say it fast and then hang up. D, buyers and sellers want the bottom line information and they want it right away. They make great agents because they're driven. Like they will get it done. And it's so interesting to me because they do make really great agents. All they have to do is just kind of somewhat, and I don't want to say all the time soften the edges because sometimes the edges are very useful. And so, but just be aware of who you're working with. And I tell this to my daughter all the time, just try not to scare the crap out of them. And she works much better down in Texas than she did here in Utah. And it's interesting because Texas agents are so not nice to each other. Up here in Utah, I believe for the majority of the time, we do look for that win-win. And if you're the agent that everybody has problems with, fix it. We are all on this journey together. Be nice. So at the end of the day, it's like, I listened to her conversation with her and another agent in Texas, and the S in me was melting into the seat. I was like, oh my gosh. If there was a way to get out of this car, I would, because I was like, and then she hung up and was just like right back to the conversation with me, and I'm like, whoa. What just happened? And she's like, what? I'm like, dude, like you took her out. And she's like, well, and then she goes, but that's just how people talk to each other around here. And I'm like,
Okay, all right, it's fine, it's fine. You guys are done. Okay, understanding an I. We can't figure out how the D's and C's tick. So you can imagine my team leader and I, because I'm an IS, he's a DC, which we joked around and said stood for don't care and I'm sorry. And true. So we look forward to get together in a good time. Again, if it ain't fun, I'm out. Like, I demand fun. And I do not hang out with other people that do not want to have fun. Because I'm all about the fun. It doesn't mean that I'm a dingbat. There's the other thing, is that if some of the disc discussions, it kind of makes the eyes sound like we're ditzy. And I'm like, oh no. Just because I want to have fun doesn't mean I'm done. It's not that. So, but be aware again of your surroundings. And if you're in the leadership room, don't be yourself. If you're I, just don't be you. Impersonate somebody else. We do need to slow down and stay focused. That's really hard. If you're a high, it's super hard to stay focused. Because if somebody's talking to you and they say something you identify with, dig these 2 fingernails into your hand and don't talk, don't speak. Let them finish their sentence, because we're notorious for jumping and going, oh, I happened to me last week. Let me tell you my story. And it's like you completely like take away their story that they're telling you, so be careful about that. I's in class don't want to accept others' criticism because everybody wants, they want everybody to like them. And so it's like, we don't want criticism. Put a little emotion into your voice, because if you don't, I'm not sure I trust you. Because there's like, I don't know, you're a robot. Robots aren't fun. I's need to listen better, because you're usually thinking about the next thing we want to say. Buyers and sellers like compliments and lots of descriptive words. We make great agents. I'm sorry, it's just natural. What's the eyes to Eskimos? We don't care. It's just fun to us. It's like, okay. And when we're working with the D's, not so much fun, but it's okay. Like we'll get it through. And you know what? It's fun getting paid. That's what I like, getting paid. Getting paid is awesome. Okay. The S's. Okay. The S's like everybody, or they appear to. They want everybody to feel satisfied. They're good teachers, psychologists, social workers. They want to relate to everyone. They don't move fast enough for the D's. They're not social enough for the I's. They get along good with the C's. They marry each other a lot. S's and C's marry each other a lot. They never want to say bad things about people because they don't really want anybody's feelings to get hurt. Buyers and sellers have a hard time making decisions, and they'll usually seek the advice of others. Think group effort. Like, that will rage when they are in the middle of a real estate deal. A group effort will rage. And how you can kind of help them, okay, they are explained to them that they're going to lose some deals. It's just going to happen. And it's okay, because we'll find the right deal for them, the right house for them. And then say to them, can I ask you a huge favor? Will you promise to me that if you truly really love this house and you really want this place, that you will raise your hand and tell me that? Because we will shift and tweak a few of our strategies and have a conversation to kind of make it a little bit better so that we have a much higher rate of getting this home successfully for you. Can I promise? Can you promise me that? Because if you ask them for that promise, that will work really well with their behavioral style, because they're like, okay, I promised. And so also teaches them how to discern, because you're going to think that they like them all. But if they get really discouraged because they really loved that one, but we just gave the same kind of mundane offer that we've been getting, they're not going to get it. We know they're not going to get it, but they really loved it. We didn't know they loved it, you know? We got to ask for that promise, because that helps them, okay? It helps you to help them. They make great agents because they want everybody to be happy at the end of the deal.
The challenge with an S agent, high S agent, is that speed is a little bit tough for them. They want everything to be fair, and sometimes it feels like things aren't fair when we're negotiating. They have to kind of work with that in their own brain and kind of find ways to get over that, okay? Because sometimes you've got to really come out with your saw sharpened pretty well to be able to get a deal done. And the other agents, they like working with them because, you know, they're nice people. And it's like, they don't really have a huge sense of urgency, but that's another thing that's kind of a little bit of an issue for them, okay? Okay, the C's. They love planning and organizing. They love systematizing numbers. They're perfectionists. They're often drawn to be engineers and accountants. They like order and neatness. If you're putting them in your car, you must have a clean car. They will fire you if you don't. Because I tip them.
My version of clean car or theirs?
Theirs.
Yeah, no, my car's never that clean.
No, I don't wanna be inside that head. I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So, like, I'm thinking about people in my life right now, trying to see what type of
Yeah.
person they are. And like, I'm having a little bit of a hard time placing like what type of person they are. But this like thing that's like have a clean car, I'm thinking like, who has a clean car? Okay, that person has a clean car. Maybe they're this one. And so like, are any of these, this is a weird one, but are any of these kind of, could you make any of them like a type of dog? Like, I feel like certain, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like D's are German Shepherds, right? Because they're like just work oriented and like just smart and sharp.
A D is an Akita. If you've been around, I have an Akita. My Akita's in charge. He's 12, he's in charge. And you know what makes me a great Akita owner? I let him be. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, I live alone. And if my great big gigantic male Akita is sitting on my feet, you'd better be checking. Because he's saying, mm-mm. So a D is an Akita. And I would be a Shih Tzu or a Lhasa Apso. And just like, ah! You know, they're just, or yellow lab coming running right at you.
Golden, I was gonna say golden retrievers.
Yeah.
Eye energy.
And it's just like, because we like to have fun, and it's like, we're just smiling and happy, and we're just like, glad to be with you.
But they're also smart and like on top of their stuff, so I feel like that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm really like having a hard time placing like other people's personalities. I know mine, you know, it's like, how do I know what my buyer is so that I, even ahead of time, so that I can.
Ask them, describe your own question to me.
Okay.
Do it in your consultation.
Okay.
And then there you are.
Well, then,
And then watch them.
one of the, I mean, there's been wonderful stuff, but where Kathy is differentiated between personality and behaviors, right? Like, anybody can have these behaviors. Matt is not a high C, but his car, if it's not immaculate, he thinks it's disgusting.
Yeah, a lot of people would probably place me as a high C because I do have OCD, and so perfectionism is like
Fair.
a
We were
huge
just watching those
thing.
behaviors, and then I said, probably the most important thing I heard was like, if you have a problem, that's your problem. Don't make it their problem,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like, if you're having a behavioral response to
Yes.
something, don't get them to conform to your stuff. Like, half the conversations Matt and I have is like, well, my client won't. It's like, you already did your job. You informed them, you told them what the consequences were, you told them what was the best course of action, all of this, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do. Your job is now to support them in that choice, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not so much, for me, it's like, even like pigeonholing people into this thing, just watching, being aware of what behaviors are gonna push them more into this space. You know, I work with a lot of people who would be considered high S's. I am super low S myself. Like, it's, you know, basement, right? But I know how to code switch into working with them.
It dials up and down.
Yeah,
Well,
most
sure.
edge for sure.
And so that's, to me, that's where the value is. It's like, don't make your shit other people's shit.
Yeah.
You're making their shit your shit because you're in a service position,
Yes.
you know, but don't get hung up on what they are. Just pay attention to what the behaviors are, because it allows you to better serve them and shift your natural styles into maybe your less natural styles to be able to better serve the client.
Yes, and therein lies the practice.
Yeah. Asking any simple questions, you could ask somebody what kind of music they like, right? And a D is gonna be like, this kind.
But this is my
You know?
music.
Whereas an S is gonna be like, well, I don't know, like I really like all kinds of music, and then you tell them your favorite, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's my favorite too.
Yes, that's true. Very good example. Yes, yes.
And that's why, like, asking them about, like, describe your perfect home. Like, a D's can be like, affordable. Like, it's got to be this price range, this, right?
Here's the data points.
Yes,
Bullet
yes.
points, very clear.
Or an S can be like,
Yeah.
oh,
I need a
Clusters.
place for everyone to come. That's what I care about.
Yes, exactly. So back to the dog analogy. Think of any dog that you think is a loyal dog. That's an S. Okay? The C dog, this is interesting. Have you ever seen dog owners that are so, like, they treat their dogs like children, and then they create these schedules for the dogs like children, and then the dog just like freaks out if the schedule goes off? Like, I think of the little teacup, what are they? Little Yorkies, little teacup Yorkies. They love schedules. I have several friends that have little teacup Yorkies, and they eat at a certain time. And it is also a reflection of the owner too. And it's so interesting because I have another friend of mine that's a lender, and she lives down the street from me. She's a super high C, like her C, like I just want to like throw myself on the floor sometimes when she, and I tell her, we're good friends. And I tell her every once in a while, dial it down. And she knows exactly what that means. I'm like, oh dude, you're so overthinking this. Let's just go have some fun. Grab your board, let's go. Who cares what bike we're going to? I don't get the car. But at the end of the day, she treats her dog and cat exactly how she wants. And those animals know what freaking time it is. They start coming over to her and they're like, hey, hey, it's 5:30. 5:30, bang the bowl. It's 5:30. They get fed every day at 5:30. And then she comes out. I swear to heaven, the ritual that she does to feed her animals, I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Because it's like she has these like little dried patties, and they have to be cut into fours and then hydrated and then microwaved. And I'm like, it's a cat. Just throw something down.
There's no way it eats garbage.
I'm
Like,
dying. I'm just like, oh my god, I have a red solo cup. Here's the cha-ching going on. I'm like, oh. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding. So I actually kind of like that idea about like putting it in different perspective. As far as people identifying, I'll tell you this. I know who my daughter is. Super high D, next is an I, low SC, okay? My son, on the other hand, I don't know. I'm kind of still thinking. And he's my kid. Because I see a little bit of everything in him, but they were raised in the same household. You'd swear they were two different parents that gave birth. Because they're very different from one another. We went through a really hard time in our life, and my daughter came out going, let's not spend anything. Let's save everything. Let's make the best decisions on finances. Let's do this because this is logical. And she just came out that way, right? My son, on the other hand, is like, hell, you can die tomorrow. Let's go. Let's live. Let's buy all the toys right now. I'm 27. I don't care how much debt I'm in. And I'm like, there's got to be a middle. But there just wasn't a middle child in Perry. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's so interesting to me. And so, but then it's like, he is, but see, you brought up a good point. Now I'm kind of thinking again, because your car is pristine. I would have normally have labeled that a C trait. However, his truck is pristine. And I walked in, I walked out, they took me to a movie on Saturday. I walked out and he had wipes and he was wiping the seat down in the back before I could get in. And I was like, are you serious? But he was wiping it all down. Okay, now it's ready for you, Mom. Here you go. And I'm just like, oh, okay, maybe he's a high C. Maybe he's just a D.
Well, and the thing is D, they're perfectionists,
Yes.
but not because like they feel like it has to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
D's are like that because it has to be a certain way. It's unacceptable if it's not that way, and that's why like people with like high OCD are going to be more of a D, and it's because they have this intrusive thought that's like, if it's not this way, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I can't have control over that thing, because D's have to be in control.
Big thing.
And so it's not, I'm a perfectionist because I really like things clean. It's, if it's not this way, I'm not going to have control.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
That makes
that's how OCD works, so.
I also think for like myself, I have a hard time, and I don't know if anyone, I'm two different people with people close to me and with everyone else. And so like personality tests I struggle with. I'm like, well, do you wanna know how I am with my boyfriend and my kids? Or do you wanna know how I am with the rest of the world?
No, that's a good point, because it will give you two different perspectives. It will give you the perspective of who you are at home and nobody's watching, and it'll give you the perspective of who you are at work.
But I feel like neither one is fake, which is like.
No, they're not.
Yeah, it's like.
You're just wired
this is me,
differently.
But this is also me.
Actually, Keith said it, it's code switching, which is where you like,
Yeah.
you bring certain things out of your personality to, I think, probably make yourself the most successful in that situation.
Yeah,
Or to have the best outcome in that situation,
yeah.
I imagine. But it's called code switching.
But it's just like she said in the beginning, and I know you weren't here, but like with the team that she was on, when the trainer was in the room, she would dial one back
Yeah,
and let the other one raise, and it's kind of doing the same thing. It's like in these situations, we've already like learned that there's certain things we have to,
Yeah,
So at some point I was
Right.
intentionally doing it, but now it's just.
now it's just, you've
Because I'm like, it's not like
become
I
accustomed to
think,
just
oh,
doing
I'm
it.
around these people, I have to behave this way, but I
Yeah.
do.
yeah. It's interesting, because like with that scenario, my husband said to me, think of the dog world, because everything in my world is dogs. Think of the dog world, and there can only be one alpha dog. There cannot be two alpha dogs. It's his team. He's the alpha. So do what you gotta do. Razorback gorilla, same thing. It's like there's only one. And I'm like, okay, no, totally makes sense. But then as soon as he left the room, and then I left with like the team and everything else, it was like, come with me if you want to live. And then when he returned, it was like, hey, you know, it wasn't like I was demure, but it was like I definitely would, wouldn't fight with him in public, which is not good.
I like to think of like
Yeah.
time. Okay, I know you kind
Yes.
of talked about time, but like one of the ways you can find somebody's like true disc is like ask them to like arrive somewhere, right?
Mm.
Like a D is going to be there right on time, no questions asked, nothing, right? An I is going to show up 30 seconds late and apologize.
Ooh, false.
Yeah, it's true. It is true, because here's the thing, like we learned how to overcompensate with that actually.
Depends on what
That's a
meeting.
natural,
Yeah.
that's a
Honestly,
natural thing.
I would tell you that high eyes are more proficient naturally at code switching than.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we are too. I do too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like I was voted the most likely to be late when I was a senior in high school. Like that was just my thing, right? And I was like, hey, yeah, you're right. I switched all of that up when I got into real estate because I wanted to be the best that there was, or the best I could be, and being late was not part of that scenario.
Yeah.
So I trained myself, and I had one person, and it was the team leader, and he said, who do you not respect, me or my time? Don't ever bleed again. If you're more than 10 minutes,
Oh, I'm gonna remember that line.
yeah, 10 minutes early to him was late.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, so I thought, oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
because I did respect him, so it was like, oh,
Yeah, and then C's are going to be like 15 minutes early.
oh yeah.
And then the S is they're gonna show up when everybody else shows up, and they're gonna wait in their car until they see everybody
Until
else
they see
coming
somebody
in.
else get in. Yeah, that's totally true.
Like that's a good way to like, if you want to
Yeah.
find out, be like, hey, meet me here at this time.
And then
Wait,
watch.
who's the one that shows up early and waits for everyone else?
See,
See.
See, okay.
See,
Yeah.
That's my word.
an S, well, a C is gonna just be there 15 minutes early, right?
Yeah.
Because they've already planned out their day. Like they're gonna make sure they're there.
And they're inside and they have the table
Yeah.
and they're ready to go. Like
The
everybody's.
S is gonna sit in the parking lot and kind of wait and be like,
They'll get there early, they'll wait for other people to get there.
Yeah.
so they
waiting
can
for the
walk in
person
with
they
them.
wanna walk in with.
yeah, exactly. They're gonna wait for the person they
Team
want to
effort
walk
to
in.
walk in.
That's killing me. Wow.
Yeah, and then the eyes, it's like unless they're very aware of their time, because it's like I've got probably 98% rate of being like I will be there.
Yeah.
Early, because what I don't like, and this is where the S comes in. Like today, I told Christy, I said I'll be there at 10:40. I rolled into the parking lot at 10:42, and I was just like, crap. I'm like, and then I came in and I got everything all plugged in. I was in plenty of time. I was early. I was ready to go. But if I walk in at 5 till, something definitely is going to happen. It's gonna make me 5 minutes late to start the class, and
Yeah.
that's just rude.
And that's why I was saying, like, if you're 1 second late, even if it's not the time, but like to your own time, you're
Yeah.
gonna like apologize. Maybe not to the room, but you start apologizing
To
to
myself?
yourself. Like, crap,
I said
I
this.
screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. And the deans, they're gonna be their own time, and they're just gonna come in like,
They're gonna come in, and even if they're a minute late, it doesn't matter.
no,
Like,
because
they're
they'll
on
never
time.
mention it.
Yeah.
And they will.
This was the time that I
Yeah.
told you was this time plus a minute.
Did I say 11:01?
So we are supposed to start.
Okay, so there we are, we're done, and we're only a couple minutes over. So any questions? Did everybody sign the
Did you get the
form? Make sure you put your license number down.
I have to get my license.
Oh.
Okay, so,
I already put it on there.
Oh, you did?
oh, you did? Oh, awesome, okay. So, any questions?